Hi, I'm Brooke Gleichowski, and I'm so excited to welcome you to Beam Boldly. As an NCAA Division I gymnast, I know firsthand what it feels like to carry the weight of performance, expectations, and identity. Here, we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about mental health, performance anxiety, NIL, resilience, and of course, how faith is our foundation that carries us through all of that. Whether it's stepping onto the beam in competition or just stepping out in everyday life, we are called to live boldly, and we're called to let our light shine. The name Beam Boldly was inspired by the verse Matthew 5:16, which says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." To me, that's what this podcast is all about. So if you're ready to hear raw conversations, find strength in faith, and be reminded that you're never walking this journey by yourself, join me as we step boldly into everyday life. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Beam Boldly. We're back with another episode, and this episode is very special. I'm super excited to introduce Mr. Brody Malone. Welcome, Brody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you are here. This conversation is going to be amazing. But, Brody, I'd love to just have you introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay. So I'm Brody Malone. I grew up in Georgia. I went to college at Stanford University, and I was a member of the 2020 Tokyo Olympic team and the 2024 Paris Olympic team, where we won a team bronze medal. And yeah.
You forgot to mention also that you're a 10-time NCAA National Champion. We're in the double digits. That's awesome. That is so cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation, get into your story a little bit. So I say we go right in and just start by telling me how you started gymnastics.
Yeah, I feel like my story is the classic gymnast story. I was 3 years old. I was one of those kids that had way too much energy, bouncing off the walls, doing flips on the couch. And my parents thought it would be a good idea to have me do that in a little bit safer of an environment. So
Right.
they put me in a gym and just kind of stuck and just went through it. Been there ever since.
Awesome. And then how did you get to Stanford?
So when I was younger, I did a lot of sports. I did baseball. Baseball was my big one. I played baseball until I was like 11 or 12. But when I was really young, I did, all the basketball, soccer. Obviously, I'm not a basketball player, so that didn't pan out. But yeah, so when I was like 11 or 12, I kind of had to make the decision between baseball and gymnastics. And to be honest with you, I couldn't really tell you why I chose gymnastics. I just ended up choosing it, and it worked out. So from that point on, gymnastics was my full focus. And then, when I got into high school and started looking at colleges and started taking that stuff a little bit more seriously, my dad actually introduced Stanford to me because I was one of those ones. I wanted to go to like Oklahoma or Illinois. It was back when Justin Spring was still the coach at Illinois. And I just loved him. I loved his energy. So I was like, oh, yeah, I want to go to one of those. And then my dad was like, oh, what about Stanford? And I looked into it a little bit more, and I was like, oh, yeah, this would be awesome. So, yeah, I took my recruiting trip there. It was my third recruiting trip. I found out right before I got on the plane to go out there that I had gotten accepted, like gotten through admissions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. So I found out that I got in because that's like a big thing at Stanford. You have to still go through like, the rigorous
regular admissions. Yeah, it's not just like, oh, you're an athlete, we'll take you.
Yeah. So found out I got in, and then I went on the trip, and I loved it there. I loved the coaches. I loved the team. Felt like we really connected, and I was like, you know what? Kind of be dumb if I didn't go here. So I was like, all right, we're going to Stanford, and then the rest is history.
Awesome. So cool. So now tell me a little bit about your faith. What's your testimony, your story growing up? Have you always been a Christian, or did you have this huge God moment? I want to hear all about that.
Yeah, I grew up going to church. My family was definitely Christian, definitely grew up that way. But I mean, it definitely comes in waves for sure. Had a few, I guess you could call them like major life changes when I was younger. When I was 12 years old, my mom passed away from breast cancer.
Oh.
And I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. So, a 12-year-old being the oldest, and that's a lot to take on, especially for my dad. It was definitely really hard on my dad. So I got to see like the process of my mom being sick and kind of what it did to my parents faith wise. And then, after my mom passed away, it was it was just interesting to watch my dad and his faith journey, because he definitely had to lean on God a lot throughout that. And that definitely, was taught to us. But, it does come in waves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we got, really strong in our faith during that time. And then for me, like I kind of used gymnastics, I feel like kind of as a way to escape from that. I'm
Right.
12 years old and my mom just died. You
Yeah.
don't really know how to process that.
No,
So
no. It's hard enough at whatever age, let alone,
yeah,
as a
yeah.
child.
So for me, like gymnastics, I guess was kind of my escape. And I just kind of poured everything that I had into that. And I think that's probably a big part of why, I've been successful, because I really just dove into it and I was like, I'm putting everything I have into this. But, watching my dad go through those struggles and, stay strong and also stay not strong throughout that was like, it was a roller coaster. I mean, he had just lost his wife and he has 4 kids. I mean, you can imagine he had to quit his job. He was a high school teacher. He had to quit his job so that he could, raise us.
Right. You're all so young too. It's not like,
Yeah.
y'all can drive and get yourself places and
Yeah. So it was definitely, has its highs and lows. But then a few years later, he actually met another woman. Her name was Lynn Johnson. They got married. We moved in with them. And again, you kind of see the roller coasters, the ups and downs of that. My dad has done a few podcasts.
oh wow.
After we're done here, I'll send you the links to those because they're really good. His testimony
Yeah.
is incredible.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So, but yeah, I got to kind of see how that went. And then in 2019, after I'd already gone to Stanford, she passed away from a brain aneurysm.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, now that one was, I was 19 at the time, so I was a little older and I could understand a little bit more and, be there to help my dad a little bit more. It was a struggle, but the thing that, that I've learned and I think my family's learned is when things like that happen, major life-changing events, whatever it may be, you have to lean on your family and you have to lean on God.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing that I learned growing up. And even, like to this day, I call my dad almost every single day just because we're that close. So that's kind of, how I've gone my faith journey through high school and the beginning of college. And then, now ever since, especially since I moved or like kind of finished college, my faith has grown tremendously. And it's been an amazing process, just, growing closer to God and then learning how, like we were talking about before, like how to bring God into gymnastics and what I did to help me do that. So just, it's just about bringing God into everything you do and, doing everything in service for the Lord. So, and that's kind of a thing, especially once I got injured in 2023, my faith played a huge part in my comeback, making it to the Paris Olympics. So I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that.
we're
Yeah.
gonna dive into that for sure.
Yeah.
I love how you just mentioned though that, it's all about bringing God into everything we do. And that's
Yeah.
how we can bring him into our sport. It's not just I'm gonna bring him along to gymnastics with me. It's when you allow him in every part of your life that then you really start to see him in your sport as well. I want to back up though and ask a little bit about more of the story with your dad. You said,
Yeah.
you watched him go through this heartache, this
Yeah.
struggle. Not only you were, of course, feeling this too, but watching your father, who's a huge figure in your life, go through that. And you said that, his faith deepened in that. What did you see, like physically see?
Yeah.
12-year-old Brody's looking at your dad. What did that practically like look like?
My dad is he's very much a, rub some dirt on it kind of guy. Like get up, you're fine, rub some dirt on it. And he definitely instilled that in us too. But I think one of the best things that he told me when right after my mom passed away was, he said, he sat us all down and he said, there's nothing that we can do about what's happened. Your mom is dead and it's okay to be sad about that. It's okay to cry over it and mourn her, but life still goes on and there's no sense in dwelling on the past. So I definitely kind of took that to heart, and I'm definitely the kind of person, I'm just like my dad. I'm like, rub some dirt on it. I miss my mom every single day, but the truth of it was that she had passed away and, there was nothing that we could really do about it. And I still miss her and I still, wish she was here, but life does go on. So that was kind of something that I saw, like he immediately told us that. And, 12-year-old me, I'm like, yeah, I took that to heart. And I definitely saw that in his actions as well. I mean, you have 4 kids, life can't just stop.
Yeah.
It has to go
Yeah.
on. So kind of seeing the way that he dealt with that and, pushed forward and, he was luckily able to step away from his job and, be able to take care of us and, raise us. I mean, we were all very young. My sister I think she was 4 at the time.
Wow.
She was my youngest, or the youngest sibling. So it was definitely crazy, but I did get to see, the just the way his faith journey kind of had its ups and downs, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I mean, as soon as my mom passed away, you could tell that, even as a 12-year-old, like his faith really, that's what he had to lean on. It wasn't just family for him, but he had to lean on God to be able to, lead us and be a good father.
Yeah, I was gonna say it from what I'm hearing, it sounds like he did a great job of, like, displaying that servantship that we also kinda just
Yes,
mentioned. He wasn't gonna stop serving his family no matter how, like, difficult this situation was, and you're right, like, life couldn't stop no matter how, like, tragic it was, so it's how you react, and, like, the way that he reacted was to serve, which is exactly what Jesus would have done, which I think is
exactly. Yeah.
super cool. And then also, you mentioned leaning on God and your family in those tough times. All gymnasts, athletes experience tough times, whether, they're super, super tough or it's the little you rolled your ankle on a random day. So, what does that look like? What is leaning on both God and your family?
Yeah, so for me, what I really learned this from was my experience with my knee injury. So I don't know how much your viewers would know about my knee injury, but in 2023, March of 2023, I had a pretty terrible accident. I was competing in high bar finals at a competition in Germany, and I slipped off and messed my knee up all kinds of ways.
Oh, no. I don't
Yeah,
wanna imagine it.
it was definitely no fun. I can kind of go through that if you want.
Dive in.
Yeah, so after I slipped off, my leg kind of hyperextended at a 45-degree angle, I guess you could call it. It was pretty gross. But I fractured my tibial plateau, which is like where your knee joint comes in. I basically like chipped a piece off. I tore my meniscus, my LCL, partially tore my PCL, and then tore my posterior lateral corner, which is like the back part of your hamstring. I ended up having 3 surgeries, had 1 surgery in Germany, flew back home to Stanford. I was still at Stanford at the time, had 2 more surgeries there. And that's kind of when I moved down to Sarasota and started training at Evo.
Mhm.
But yeah, like as far as going through that and the things that I learned from that, the story I always love to tell because I don't know, it was just something that was so, I don't really know how to explain it. It was just like a feeling that I had
Mhm.
after the injury happened. And we're in Germany. I'm sitting there laying on the mat, and I'm feeling all these kinds of emotions. I mean, pain being the biggest one for sure. I'm like, what the heck just happened to my knee?
Right.
I'm angry, I'm mad. And I actually remember asking my coach what my score was.
Oh my gosh.
Like I'm laying there and they're trying to, get my knee straight and get it all secure. And my coach is there. I'm like, what was my score? But there was just also a lot of confusion as to what had just happened. I mean, when something crazy like that happens, you're like, whoa, what was that? What's going on? I remember I was laying on the ground and I remember praying. I'm like, God, I don't know like what your plan is for this or why this happened to me, but I trust that you have a plan for me.
Mhm.
And immediately I felt just a sense of peace come over me. Like all those emotions just went away and I was like, okay, this is part of the plan. And then I also like to tell the story of my dad too, and he's told this. He may have told this in a few podcasts, but he did the same thing. He prayed the same prayer, and we like to think that it was at about the same time. But he
Wow.
said he prayed basically the same prayer, and the sense of peace just came over him the same way that it did for me. So that was very comforting. That was something where I kind of felt like, I had God really speak to me. He just gave me that sense of peace. And I was able to get through the rest of my time in Germany and get back. But, after I had my second surgery, which was my first one at Stanford, It was a struggle. I mean, it was a major surgery. They put 9 screws and 2 plates in my knee,
Oh
and then
my
they
God.
did like a cartilage. My cartilage was damaged, so they had to do, it's called a microfracture procedure. So they drill a bunch of little holes in it and to stimulate growth, I guess. And then they also did my meniscus. So I was on crutches for 6 weeks, which for me, like I'd never had a major injury up to this date. So for me, I'm a pretty active guy.
Yeah.
I like to be going and doing things, and to be
Yeah.
pretty much stuck in the bed for the first 2 weeks after that surgery. It was really hard for me to get out of the bed. My dad had to fly out and take care of me, and then after he came out, my now wife flew out and took care of me for a week, and it was just a rough time. And one of the major things that I learned from that was, so I'm the kind of person. This is also like a testament to how my dad raised us. Like, I don't like to ask for help for anything. I'm very much, I'll just take care of it and do everything myself. I don't like to burden other people. But when you're sitting there in the bed and you can't really, the only time you can really get up is to go to the bathroom, and it's a struggle to even do that, you have to rely on other people.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was kind of God teaching me a little bit of a lesson. Like, it's okay to lean on others for help in this time of need. And then for me, that, like, it clicked. I was like, this is what I need to do with God. Like, I need to lean on God the same way I'm leaning on these other people to help me. So that was kind of like a really
Yeah.
big lesson that I learned from that.
I love how he showed you that through people too.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool that it wasn't just like all of a sudden you just had this idea like, "Oh, I'm gonna lean on God," but he showed you like, "Oh, these people who like love me so much and that I care about so much are I'm leaning on them and they're helping me, and like if they can do this much, how much can God do?"
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're humans just like you are, but, like, how much can the creator of the universe do if, like, this is how much they can help you? And I also think, I'm curious to know you going back to being on a team, whether it was Stanford or Team USA, like, knowing how to lean on teammates. In college gymnastics, it's huge, like, the team
Yeah.
is everything. So, I'd love to dive into that a little bit if you could, connect those dots of learning how leaning on other people was like a positive thing and not a weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably something, like, I kind of like what you said there. It's not a weakness. And that's something probably prior to this injury, kind of the way that I was leaning on people, I might have considered it more of a weakness,
Mhm.
but I really just had like a change of mind, like a complete 180, especially like leaning on my teammates and coaches and medical, like as far as definitely leaning on the medical staff. I feel like I had no choice. I had to put my full, faith and trust in them because they were the ones that were getting me back.
Right.
And, prior, or, learning how to lean on my friends and family, then just transferred over to my teammates and coaches and all the medical staff that helped me get back to where I was. I truly couldn't have done it without them. I feel like, especially looking back now, they went through it with me. It wasn't just me going through this crazy event and trying to get back. Like, they were behind me every step of the way. And me having this new outlook of letting them get behind me and having them with me every step of the way, it was like a game changer for me.
Right.
Yeah, I was really able to dive into it because I knew I had full support from everyone.
I love that. I love that, this took your perspective to, like you said, like it shifted it completely 180. A lot of times we think, oh, especially by that age too, you're like, I should know my gymnastics. I should know my stuff. I should, not be scared of things. I should, just know how to deal with these emotions. But God puts people in your life for a reason, and He
Yeah.
creates community around you for a reason. And I think that's really cool that through something very challenging and unfortunate, you were still able to learn about the community around you that God was providing for you, and able to trust and put your faith, that they were helping you. And how much easier was it to like get through that hard thing having them, having your back?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could not have done it by myself.
Mhm.
Like, absolutely. If I was on my own trying to do that stuff, it would have never worked out. So to have, God to lean on, and then have my family and my fiance, or my wife now, like have her and then have all my teammates and my coaches, everyone behind me. It just made it that much easier for me because they were going through it with me. I didn't have to do it alone. They were by me every step of the way. And there's a verse that I do want to bring up before we get too far off of this. My dad sent this to me the day that I broke my leg. So as soon as it happened, he sent me this verse. It's from James. It's chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. And I'm going to read it so that I don't butcher it, if that's okay.
Go for it.
It says, "Consider it a great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing." So he sent me that, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, I'll consider it a great joy that this has happened to me. But then I really start thinking about it, and I'm like, what? Like, I just broke my leg into a million pieces, and I'm supposed to think that was awesome.
Right. What
Supposed
kind
to be
of
happy about that?
what kind of joy is that?
Yeah. But especially, it's all in the past now, but especially looking back, I tried to consider it a great joy. And what I learned that this means is that when you go through something like this, anything that's traumatic or like a big life-changing event, what it means to consider it great joy is that God loves you enough to put you through those kinds of things so that you can grow closer to him. Because what are you supposed to do? What's the first thing you're supposed to do when you go through something bad? You go to God. So I really had to like reframe my mindset around it. Like, it's not, oh, this happened to me, how sad or how mad should I be about it? It's, oh, this happened to me. Yes, I can't change that, but I can use this as an opportunity to grow closer to God, and I can find joy in that.
Right.
And I mean, ultimately that's what I did. And that's why it was way less difficult for me to come back, because I considered it a joy. Like, all the things that I was going through, I'm like, okay, I'm growing closer to my friends. I'm growing closer to my family. I'm growing closer to my teammates. I'm growing closer to my coaches and all the medical staff that are helping me. And I'm growing closer to God. Why is this not something that I could be happy about?
Right. There's
You
still
know?
so much joy to take from it. I
Yeah.
love that. And it reminded me of this analogy that someone told me one time, but they had a shoelace and they were hanging it and they were like, "This is your life. Like, the shoelace is your life."
Yeah.
And then she cut the shoelace in half. And she was like, "At this point in your life, something really challenging happened, something tragic happened. It was really bad. And at first glance, you're far from God because, you're broken." And then she tied the two laces back together, and the lace was shorter, meaning that you were closer to the top, closer to God.
Yeah.
And it was like that knot was like the endurance that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that was it just reminded me of that, just for an analogy.
I love that.
It's hard to find joy immediately. I mean, you're literally laying there and the utmost feeling you feel is pain, right? You're like, "What the
Yeah.
heck?" And also when stuff like that happens, you're like, "I've done that skill how many times and been totally fine? Like, what in the world?" So weird. And so you have like a level of shock and pain and confusion, just like you were just talking about. But it's really inspiring that you were able to find joy throughout that process afterwards. And I mean, we're about to get into like where that led you
Mhm.
to, going through this really hard thing, but it's super, super cool. Okay, so jumping in, let's talk about the Olympics. Was going to the Olympics always a dream of yours? At one point, did you realize, like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I could go to the Olympics"? What was that
Yeah.
like?
I mean, I was definitely one of those kids when I was younger. It was probably after watching the London Olympics 2012, and seeing those guys out there, and I was like, you know what, I want to do that. Of course, I'm a 12-year-old kid and I have no clue what that actually entails, but I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool to go to the Olympics. I'm going to do that one day. So years go on, and then I make the junior national team for my first time. I was 15. It was in 2015. And that was a huge, huge motivator for me. I didn't even finish that well. I think I finished like 8th place, but
Okay.
it just like lit a fire under me. I was like, this is awesome. Like
And you were like, "Wait, I might actually be able to do this."
yeah, I was like, I knew there was a lot more work to do. At
Uh-huh.
15 versus 12, I had a little bit better of an idea
Mhm.
what it was going to take, but I still grand scheme of things, had no clue. I just knew that I loved gymnastics and I loved pushing myself, and I'd gotten this little bit of success, or had reached this goal that I wanted, and then I wanted more. So I immediately, not just after that, but prior to that too, like I made it a point every single day in the gym to work as hard as possible. Every single turn, I made sure that I was putting full effort in and that I wasn't, wasting turns or wasting a practice. So I really kind of just made sure I was working hard, because my goal was to make it to the Olympics. So flash forward through high school, I made junior national team again when I was 17. So I missed a year, which sucked, which also lit another fire under me. I'm working my butt to get back on national team, and I make it. I go to a few international competitions. I don't do great, but I'm getting a little bit of experience under my belt, which is good. And then when it really kind of started coming, I guess I started believing it, was when I went to college. So for men's, it's a little bit different than women's. So
I was just thinking that. Like, I forget you guys are going later
yeah,
than
so
we
for
are.
us, college is more of a prep for Team USA stuff.
Right.
Which for
Okay.
girls, it happens before college. Like
Right.
you're
And then you
usually,
go to college, and most of the time you're done. Not all the time, but most of the time you
yeah.
go to college, and that's like how you end your career.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
a little bit different.
Mhm.
So my goal was to, once I made it to college, I remember I had a meeting with our coaches. They always do individual meetings at the beginning of the year. So my
Yep.
freshman year, I'm going in there, and they asked me what my goals are, and I said I want to go to the Olympics, and they're like, okay, we think that you can do it, but they laid it out for me exactly what I needed to do to be
Oh,
able to get
wow.
there. And I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And so that whole freshman year was kind of me. It was a big adjustment. I'm from Georgia, so I'm on the opposite side of the country.
Right.
I'm trying to juggle classes and then gym, and then, I mean, you know exactly how it is.
Yeah.
It can be a
You're
struggle.
handling a lot. I can't imagine
Yeah,
also thinking about going like, "Oh,
yeah,
what's the next step for me to get to my Olympic dreams?" Like,
yeah,
at this moment.
yeah. So it was definitely a lot, but I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about how to train properly and how to train at a high level,
Mhm.
because that's something that I'd been missing maybe a little bit in my junior career. I mean, I trained at a high level for a junior, but there's a big difference between junior men's national team and senior men's national team. Like once I got to the senior level, I'm all of a sudden competing against the top guys in the world. Like they're my competition.
It's a
Sam
big
McCool.
jump.
Yeah, so I don't know if you go, like Sam McCulloch was my
Yeah.
gymnastics idol growing up, and then all of a sudden I turn 18 and I'm competing against him.
Right.
So it's a very, very big jump. I kind of used that freshman year, and I used the NCAA season to, learn how to compete for a team, which was a little bit different. Because I mean, when you're in high school, you know how it is. Gymnastics is a pretty individual sport, but once you get to college, it's all about the team. So that was kind of, reframing a little bit of a mindset there. It was different, which I loved it. I love competing for a team. So learning how to do that, and then learning how to compete high skill or high level skills, and high difficulty routines, and learning how to compete those over and over and over again, because the NCAA season is long. I had never
Yeah.
competed that much in my life.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we start this week, 12 weeks, no bye week or anything. 12
yeah,
weeks straight.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot, but I really used those competitions. Like every competition, I just kind of built on my experience, and I learned a lot. I had a couple really bad meets at the beginning of the season, and then kind of figured it out and was able to start performing really well. And what I learned in that freshman year, as far as training and competing, I would say really developed me into the gymnast that I am now, for sure. If I hadn't have had that kind of structure and that kind of development, I don't think I would have been as successful as I have been. So I was really, really grateful for that. And it's one of those things, like you just have to, like, it's a lot of work, but you just have to submit to it, right? Like
There's
every day
no
I went,
other option.
yeah,
It's
there's no
just
other
that.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed my time, especially freshman year, learning all that stuff. And then, sophomore, junior, senior year, I even took a fifth year. Oh my gosh, I'm old. But yeah, I really loved NCAA and I loved Stanford, and it was a great experience for me, and it really helped me become who I am as an athlete and a person. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. And then what was it like making your first Olympic team?
oh man,
I know COVID was probably like throwing some sort of wrench
yeah,
in this.
it definitely was. I don't know, it was one of those like surreal feelings. I can't really explain it. Actually, cool story. So I don't know if you've watched in most of my routines. Like I'm not the kind of person that celebrates after routines
Right.
or
No.
anything. I'm really very straight faced. I salute. And
Mhm.
I think the first time I ever let it slip a little bit. So it was day 2 of Olympic trials in 2021. And I had rings and vault left. And I go on rings and I stick my dismount and I salute to the judge, and I can't help it. I just give a little smile because I knew at that point I was like, I made the team.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the best way I can explain how it felt. It's like one of those
Yeah.
things like you just can't help but
You
smile,
just yeah.
you know? So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was fun.
That is so cool. And then how was your first Olympics? What was that like?
Yeah, no, it was a cool experience. So actually Tokyo was the first major competition that I'd ever been to. I had not gone to world championships prior to this. The biggest thing that I'd done as a senior, I went to Pan American Games,
Mhm.
but I'd never been to a Worlds or Olympics, obviously. So it was my first big competition. And it was kind of like a scary feeling, like the initial emotions when you make the Olympic team. You're like, oh my gosh, I've completed this lifelong dream. I've done it. But then a few minutes later, it hits you. Oh my gosh, I have to compete at the Olympics. I have to do good,
Right.
right?
You're like, "I'm not just trying to go, also, like, we're trying to get a medal," like
Yeah. So it can definitely be stressful, but
Mhm.
I think the experience overall was great. I mean, it was definitely different given that it was a COVID Olympics, but I didn't know any different because I'd never been. So everything going over there, we didn't stay in the village. We stayed
Mhm.
in a hotel right beside our competition venue. And I mean, there was no crowd. That's like the first day that we competed for prelims, there was no one in the stands. It was like dead silent. So
That's
I
rough.
guess it was going from Olympic trials where there were like 15,000 people to go into the Olympics and there's no one. It was a little bit of there's actually a really big difference there, but
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of kept the nerves down a little bit. It felt more like a practice meet than anything. And especially since we weren't staying in the village, we had our own floor on a hotel. It felt more like a national team camp than anything. So, as far as, keeping the nerves down and stuff like that, I think that helped a lot. But I think the competition in Tokyo went really well. I think the only routine that I missed was my high bar routine and high bar finals.
Mm.
Dang it. Yeah, but
The one.
the one that I needed. But no, it was a phenomenal experience. We did really well as a team. I I thought for me, like personally, I was very happy with my performances, except for the high bar
Yeah.
finals. That one still gives me nightmares. I'm laying in
Oh.
bed at night. I'm like, oh. So I did a skill, and I was supposed to hit handstand and go over, and I went the
Mhm.
wrong way.
Oh.
Yeah, that cost me a medal, but
Oh my gosh.
it's fine. It's fine. I'm
Wow.
over it.
You live and you learn.
Yeah.
Moving on. Okay, so talking I mean, this kinda goes for both Olympics, but going to the Olympics, of course, like, draws a lot of attention to you
Yeah.
just in general. So how were you able to keep God at the center of your focus and not your achievements and the distractions? And I mean, COVID, nobody was there really to
Yeah.
distract you, but, in 2024 too, how are you able to keep God at the center?
Yeah. So, like, after my injury in 23, I told myself, prayed about it a lot. I wanted to make God the reason that I was coming back
Mm.
because I knew He had a plan for me. I didn't know what that looked like, but I told Him, I was like, God, whatever this looks like for me, I want to put you at the center and I want to do what I'm doing to glorify you. So I told myself that I was going to take every opportunity that I could to give God thanks for what He had done, whether I made it to the Olympics or not. So that was something that I just put at the forefront of everything. So all of my interviews, I always tried to give thanks to God, or, work it in there that I was doing this for God in some way. And that's something that, especially like in Tokyo, I probably wasn't very good at doing that. I will admit. For Tokyo, I was just kind of thrown into all the media stuff. That one,
Right.
I'm not very good at interviews and stuff like that. And, I was 21 years old and they just threw me into all of it. I mean, you can't imagine the media.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, I was doing interviews left and right and I didn't like it. But I'm a lot better at it now.
Mhm.
So I've had a little bit more practice, so I'm happier with where I'm at there for
Yeah.
sure. But that was a huge focus, was to just bring God into it as much as I possibly could, because I mean ultimately he was the reason that I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great again that you turned something that was so like such a tragic moment in your life at first into something incredible and something that you gave glory back to God for. And I would love to hear a little bit more about like your perspective as like going into competition,
Mhm.
knowing like, okay, now God is at the center of everything I'm doing. And every chance I get, whether I'm talking to a teammate or media or whatever, I'm going to say, like, this is because of God.
Yeah.
So, how did that impact your competition mindset?
It made me more calm for sure. But this was something that I'd taken into competition always. Like I always pray before every routine that I do.
Mhm.
I always pray before every competition. God is with me in all my competitions. Like I always make that a point. But as far as like competing, I used what I had already been doing. And I mean, if
Mhm.
anything, it was extra motivation that, you know, and kind of weight off my shoulders. Like I was like, okay, God's got a plan for this. It's kind of up to him. Like I've done the work at this point. Like I know I'm in shape. I know I'm doing my routines well. Like I just kind of got to go do what I've been doing.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's kind of like a weight or a release, because that, I mean, you're going to be taken care of, and I knew I was going to be taken care of whether I did well or did terrible. So
Right. And I think that it also in your story, like, it kind of made no sense, if you would have told yourself the Brody that was laying on the floor being like, "What the heck just happened?" If you would have been like, "Hey, don't even worry. Next year you're gonna be in Paris." You probably would have been like, "That makes no sense. What in the
yeah,
world? Like, what are you talking about?"
yeah,
And I think that's, like, part of the reason why you were so calm because you were like, "I couldn't have gotten here at all if it wasn't for God." So, like, clearly he has some sort of plan, some sort of purpose through this, and I think that's probably the best possible, outlook you can have going into
absolutely.
competition, knowing that it's in his hands, not your own. But speaking on that topic of, like, competition preparation, was there, like, a specific Bible verse that you prayed or read before you went into the meet, worship song, anything like that that helped,
Yeah.
like, prepare you?
I mean, the main Bible verse that I kept going back to was that James verse that my dad
Mm,
sent me. And that's something that you can go back to whenever, even when you're not going through trials, but to consider everything a great joy. I think one of my favorite quotes is, I don't even know if this is really a quote, but like the way my outlook on things, especially
mhm.
going into Paris, was I don't have to do this, I get to do this. So gymnastics is one of those things that I enjoy doing. And I'm not forced to do it in any way. Like I do this because I love it and I get to glorify God through it. So why not be happy? Like
Yeah. Like, that alone is enough to be happy about. That alone is enough to, like, have joy because of whether you go get gold, silver, bronze, 18th place,
yeah.
like, either way, I think that's an incredible perspective, and I wish that my younger self had that perspective going into competition of, like, it is such a joy that I get to get up, on this balance beam and do a flip right now and show everyone that I've been, like, working so hard and that God's given me this talent, and whether it goes great or doesn't go great, it's still like, "Look what God can do," you know? What do you think is the biggest lesson overall that God has taught you through gymnastics?
I mean, it's got to be what we were talking about earlier, just learning how to lean on others. Because I mean, when I tell you I was very hard headed and I didn't like asking for help, I was very hard headed. My wife can probably attest to that. She's over there right now. She's nodding her head. uh, so I mean, it was really, I mean, it was a struggle at first to come to terms with, okay, I can't get out of the bed right now. Like I couldn't go make myself breakfast. I mean, when she was with me, she brought me breakfast every single morning.
Yeah.
Just little things like that you take for granted. So learning how to lean on others, and then in turn, what I was talking about before, like learning how to lean on God, that really helped me. Learn how to lean on like my friends and close family, and in turn teaching me how to lean on God. That was the biggest lesson that I
Yeah.
learned throughout
And
that.
not having to carry everything on your own.
Yeah,
Like the Bible says, number one, that God will carry our burdens, but also that, the people around you, we help each other carry those burdens. And it's really cool how gymnastics, or you learn that through gymnastics, but that's something that you're going to take into the rest of your life too.
absolutely.
And I think that's really incredible. What final piece of advice would you give to a younger gymnast or athlete, maybe younger Brody, on how to navigate bringing your faith into your sport?
I mean, I would just say, like, as a reminder, I forget where it is in the Bible, but it says everything you do as if you're working, like all the work you do as if you're working for the Lord.
Mm,
And that's something that I think, especially as my younger self, if I would have, reminded myself of that every single day, it would have been that much easier to go in the gym and work hard. So, I mean, when you work hard for someone that you love, that work, it's not like work, it's something you enjoy. So that's something that, as a younger gymnast, I think leaning into that would help me drastically.
yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Say that one more time.
Colossians 3, I'll read verses 22 and 23. It says, "Slaves, obey your human masters in everything. Don't work only while being watched as people pleasers, but work wholeheartedly, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, do it from the heart as something done for the Lord and not for people, knowing that you will receive the reward of an inheritance from the Lord."
That's awesome. I totally agree that younger Brooke hearing that would have changed my perspective on gymnastics as a whole completely, because when you're young and there's pressure on you, I mean, there's pressure on you as you get older too. That doesn't go away. But sometimes when you're young, you feel like the whole weight of the world is on your shoulders and people are telling you, oh, you could do this and you go this far and yada, yada, yada. And it's hard to know what that means, and you can start to lose the joy in what you're doing, and you start to, do I really want to work this hard? Oh my gosh, this is getting really hard. But it's really cool that, in those verses the Lord literally reminds us to work hard for him as if we are serving him, because we are serving him,
Yeah.
through our sport. And
Absolutely.
you were able to serve him to the point where you got to do all those interviews at the Olympics where you mentioned God. And how many people, got to listen to those interviews and hear the word God?
Yeah.
We have no idea, but more than before.
More than before. That's
More than
right.
before. Awesome. All right. Well, this was so great. Thank you so much, Brody, for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Beam Boldly. Subscribe so that you don't miss another one. Bye, you guys.